Welcome back to the Futuristic Podcast, episode 46. It is the 31st of October 2025. The first time I've seen your face on a screen, except on TikTok, Steve Sammartino, since August 4th was the last time you and I did an episode. I did one with my old friend Nick Johnson, principal of Toowoomba Anglican School, on August 23, but we have not done a podcast for nearly 3 months, Steve. Not because there's been nothing happening, just because there's too much happening and you've been too busy.
Sounds so needy. I apologize wholeheartedly, Cameron. And the fact that you didn't delete my phone from your contacts
No.
is revelatory, and I like it. It's good. You're a good man, and I missed it, and I missed it. Our chats, because every time I chat to you, I get a little bit smarter. So I've been in cognitive decline, and I'm glad we're going to unpack.
I've got less hair than the last time we talked, not because it's falling out, but just because it's hard to tell with this glare coming through my window. But I am Sean. I guess white. Right.
Can I just ask, when did you go grey? Because you got a really good grey mop there. When did it? Were you one of those early grey dudes?
Yeah, I started going grey at 23. I'm white. I've been white for a lot longer than I've been grey, but
Blonde. Is part of the Aryan nation?
yeah. Or as the Mormons like to say, white and delightsome. If you want to get into heaven, you need to be white and delightsome.
Do you? Goodness me. All right.
Steve, in terms of what to talk about today, there's been a lot of news in the last 3 months and too much to catch up on, obviously. And I thought, seeing as we're coming up to the 3rd anniversary of ChatGPT, which hit the world in November of 2022, it might be a good time to stop and reflect. Where have we come from? Where are we today? And where do you think we might be 3 years from now? What do you think about that as a model, Steve?
Perfect. It is the perfect time for a review. 3 years. Things work in threes. And it is the perfect time to review it because it's been a pretty radical 3 years. And maybe in some ways we're in the trough of disillusionment now. A lot of people are starting to ask questions. The bubble word comes up, which comes up with every technology revolution. And bubbles aren't bad anyway. If a bubble bursts, the beneficiaries are usually the people because there's been an excessive investment in capital, and that can benefit all of us because the infrastructure gets built out and they overinvested, and we need that. It happened with broadband cables and early internet, and now it's happening again potentially, and that's good because you want overinvestment because the beneficiaries are usually the wider populace when it comes to infrastructure and technology revolutions.
Yes. Look, there's obviously a ton of investment, a ton of hype going into all things AI and robotics. NVIDIA just became a $5 trillion company. OpenAI is suggesting they might IPO at a $1 trillion valuation. I mean, it is like bonkers stuff, absolutely bonkers. But I thought I would start this by pulling up the blog post that OpenAI put out in November 2020. It was November 30th, so we're about a month away from the 5-year anniversary. It was pretty simple. It said, we've trained a model called ChatGPT, which interacts in a conversational way. The dialogue format makes it possible for ChatGPT to answer follow-up questions, admit its mistakes, challenge incorrect premises, and reject inappropriate requests. ChatGPT is a sibling model to Instruct GPT, which is trained to follow an instruction in a prompt and provide a detailed response. We are excited to introduce ChatGPT to get users' feedback and learn about its strengths and weaknesses. During the research preview, usage of ChatGPT is free. Try it now at chatgpt.com. Then there were some samples, ways to use it. Limitations. ChatGPT sometimes write plausible sounding but incorrect or nonsensical answers. Well, I'm glad they fixed that. uh, but these were simpler times in
Well,
November 2022. Do you remember when you first heard about it and when you first used it?
yeah. I was actually using GPT, the model before. It might have been a 2.5 or a 3, through one of the APIs, because the APIs were released earlier. It wasn't Grammarly. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. And it blew my mind the first time I saw it. Uh, but then when I went on to ChatGPT, I do remember it being a super revolution. And we can remind listeners that they had 100 million users in the first month, fastest adopted consumer product in history. Also, they've got 983 million monthly users now, which is pretty radical, maybe one quarter of the internet. And a
Wow.
lot of people don't have, let's call it, unlimited data like we have in Western markets. So you'd pretty much say if you're in a Western market, you're on it. It's decimated search. I did see a statistic which blew my mind on search now. If you're a first page search on Google, first page search item, traffic is down, reportedly just came out yesterday, 79%.
Wow.
And that's two reasons. The first one is the AI drop down summaries that happens in Google, which, to their credit, they've adopted the reality of where they are, unlike Kodak,
Mm,
and said, look, people are going this way, we just have to adopt it and work out the business model later.
mm.
But also, I know that I use ChatGPT 80% of the time when I once would use search. And I simply ask it for the live feeds of, tell me where you got it from, what happened today, and those small prompts to make sure the data you're getting isn't just a historical construct. And it really has changed the way we use the internet fundamentally. And even though I think the last maybe 3 or 6 months, a lot's been happening, but nothing fundamental, I would say. It's easy to forget how far we've come in those 3 years, because the first version of ChatGPT, when it was launched in November of 2022, remember that was an 18-month-old database. And then it was 6 months old, and then now it's live. It didn't have code bases, didn't have DALL-E, didn't have image recognition, didn't have video. It's easy to forget that it isn't just ChatGPT, it's actually been really dramatic. And we've almost been spoiled by the fact that every iteration, most of them for 80% of that time in the past 3 years, has been incredible and wowing. And maybe in the last few months, because we haven't been wowed with the most recent iteration of ChatGPT, then all of a sudden, bubble came out.
I've got an article here from the 5th of December 2022, New York Times, by Kevin Roose. He says, like most nerds who read science fiction, I've spent a lot of time wondering how society will greet true artificial intelligence if and when it arrives. Will we panic, start sucking up to our new robot overlords, ignore it, and go about our daily lives? So it's been fascinating to watch the Twitter sphere try to make sense of ChatGPT, a new cutting-edge AI chatbot that was open for testing this week. ChatGPT is quite simply the best artificial intelligence chatbot ever released to the general public. It was built by OpenAI, the San Francisco AI company that is also responsible for tools like GPT-3 and DALL-E 2, the breakthrough image generator that came out this year. Goes on to say that AI chatbots are usually terrible, but ChatGPT feels different, smarter, weirder, more flexible. It can write jokes, some of which are actually funny, work in computer code and college-level essays. It can also guess at medical diagnosis, create text-based Harry Potter games, and explain scientific concepts at multiple levels of difficulty. And, I always like to go back and read news articles from the early days of the internet, 93, 94, 95, and see how people were talking about it. He finishes this article, though, by saying, personally, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that ChatGPT, a chatbot that some people think could make Google obsolete, and that has already been compared to the iPhone in terms of its potential impact on society, isn't even OpenAI's best AI model. That would be GPT-4, the next incarnation of the company's large language model, which is rumored to be coming out sometime next year. We are not ready. Now, what they did come out with a week ago or so was ChatGPT Atlas, their Chromium web browser. Are you using Atlas?
Chromium. No, I haven't. I did have a look at it, but I haven't gone to using it. Are you?
Yes, I've been using it exclusively as my browser since it came out. And basically, if you type something in, you open it up and you type something in the URL field, which would normally pull up a Google search, it pulls up a ChatGPT answer. So ChatGPT is built in, it's the default answering model. You can also, use it on a sidebar and access all of your chats with ChatGPT. Anything you plug into the browser also turns up in your ChatGPT history if you interface via the app or your phone or whatever. So it's totally
I better
integrated
be
in the back
careful
end.
then, because that's the last thing I want, Cameron. I don't even want to talk about it.
Uh, but yeah, look, it's I've seen a lot of negative feedback about it in the forums, but I think it's great. Like, it is the default thing I go to now. It'll give me, if I just type in a general search, it'll give me Wikipedia links, news source links, whatever I want. It's a search engine that understands me. It'll quite often, if I ask a general question, it'll give me an answer, and then it'll say, if you're thinking about this in terms of doing a podcast episode for one of your history podcasts or your investing podcast, here's some of the things you might want to think about. So it's search answers that are already built, personalized, built around what it knows about me, what I'm trying to do. Yeah. So that's a big thing. Like, I don't go to Google. I literally do not go to Google anymore, because this is now my browser is just ChatGPT integrated, native integration into ChatGPT. But anyway, I'm getting off the track. So November 22 came out, and my recollection is that I was shocked and impressed that I could have a conversation with a chatbot that could converse in English. It could understand what I was talking about. It could understand a question. It could answer my questions. It could write coherent English responses about anything. They weren't always correct. They still aren't always correct, but it was like just a massive shift in language user interfacing with a computer.
So
Uh, Blew my
that's the
mind at the
key
time.
element.
Yeah.
That's the key element, Cameron. The big shift when ChatGPT came out was it was the first successful consumer-oriented natural language processing computation device where you could type or talk to it and get a result that was coherent, and not only coherent, a PhD in every single subject. And just like normal human PhDs, they say stupid things too occasionally. So I feel like it really was when the abstraction of computation got removed and we could interface in a human way with computational devices. And that was the revolution there. Even the word chat, because chatbots had been around, felt like a bit of a misnomer, almost was named poorly and didn't really give the gravitas to what it was. Because my opinion, and I know yours because we've discussed it over the time, is we already have artificial general intelligence. To me, that was the launch of AGI. It is general. It is better than most people at most things. The Cameron Riley definition of artificial general intelligence. And we've had it for 3 years. And that's quite telling too, because we've had artificial general intelligence for 3 years. And where exactly is this job apocalypse that everyone keeps talking about? It ain't here. And by the way, it ain't coming anytime soon or ever. And I know that we debated that. And I'm even more steadfast on that 3 years down the track that We're not about to replace everyone. Certainly, people with jobs that have variety in them.
Well, let's talk then about where we are late 2025. You say there's no job apocalypse, but
No.
big tech companies, Amazon just announced they're laying off, I think, 40,000, was it 30,000 or 40,000 people? And it's not because they're replacing them all with an AI, but it is, as I understand it, because they need to cut costs so they can sink more money into building data centers to run AI. And they have to find the money from somewhere, and the first place to go is these 40,000
Right.
employees. So it's a side effect of
Right.
AI, not
Okay.
directly being replaced by AI. But Microsoft's been letting thousands of people go. I think some of them are being replaced by AI. But we're a long way from seeing the apocalypse. And I think the reason is the AI is still not good enough yet. I had a friend come over for a coffee yesterday, and last time he was over a week or two ago. He's a web designer slash user interface designer guy, bit of a coder. I said, "Are you using Cursor?" And he said, "No, I'm not. I'm not using." I said, "It's your company works in the energy sector, building solutions for the energy sector." I said, "How much AI are people using coding in the background?" He goes, "Not much." I said, "Check out Cursor." Now, I don't know if you and I, well, we probably haven't talked about this because it's been months, but for people who don't use Cursor, aren't coders, Cursor is a developer tool, an IDE as we call it, an interactive development environment. Basically, where you write code, and it's had AI integration now for a year, 18 months. But one of the things that they implemented a couple of months ago is basically agentic development processes. So now I will, and I use it all day, every day. And it's not full time all day, every day, but it's working on projects behind the scenes. So I will be trying to write a piece of code for running my business. Right? I'll say, here's what I want to do. Um, Help me build this. And it'll start writing code, and then it will test the code using Linter, like a testing environment. And it has full access to my hard drive, my project folders, and it will write the code, build the code, test the code. The code will fail. It'll go, oh, that didn't work. Let me try again. That didn't work. Let me try again. Oh, I see what I did there. And it'll run in the background for 10, 15, 20 minutes trying to get a working version of it. It'll finally say, yeah, I think this works. I'll test it. It won't work. I'll say, have a look at the console. And then it'll read the console. Oh, okay, I see what the problem is. And it goes through another cycle of debug, test, debug, test, debug, test until it thinks it's got a working model. And I'll rinse and repeat. And this will sometimes go on for hours or days. And at the end of every day, I will export my conversation with it to my project folder. And then the next day, if I start a new session, I'll say, we've been trying to solve this problem. Go and read the conversation that we had yesterday. It's in my folder. It's a markdown file. And let's pick up from where we left off yesterday. The other interesting thing that it does is when the context window, if you've been having a chat with it for 3 or 4 hours and you're still going around it, the context window, it gets so large that it can't remember what you talked about hours ago, and then it starts to repeat itself.
It does, yeah.
What Cursor automatically does is when the context window is filling up, it stops, summarizes the conversation, creates a new chat session, uses that summary as the prompt for the new chat session, and kicks it off again. So that's all. It just automatically cleans out its context window and starts again. So it's amazing. But this friend came yesterday, goes, I tried using Cursor, and it got like 90% of the way to building a solution for me and then kept failing on the last 10%. And I just got in this loop where I couldn't get it to fix the last 10%. And I was like, yeah, I know that feeling. And I think that is the problem, is it's still almost useful in that sort of closed loop way, but it's still not. It's there are still hallucinations, it still makes mistakes, it still gets stuck in these loops. So we're not there yet. It can't replace a human.
No.
It can replace maybe some like low level developers,
Yeah.
but it
Yep.
can't replace a good developer yet.
So the Amazon, going way back to the jobs and the replacement, I mean, that's the interesting part is, yeah, there's a huge investment and you need to offset the cost of that investment by removing employees. And it's not overtly dissimilar to getting robots into a car factory and funding that investment and having some short-term pain where you get people within the administrative or marketing or other commercial realms to offset that. That has happened quite frequently. It would be good to see a study on how that has happened historically, but I don't think there's an increase in job losses directly related to the technology itself. And I would be surprised if this automation exceeds the impact that robotic and manufacturing automation has had. I really would. And I actually don't think it's going to happen. And I actually don't think that even if it can finish a project and that last 10% that you're speaking about can happen, I actually don't think it's going to replace us, because agency is the thing that humans want, and we change our mind frequently. A friend of mine, Nick Hodges, he talks about it, and I wrote about it last week. He calls it the takeoff and landing problem, is that we want to set the course for the plane, watch where it's going. And you just said then you're using the console or the control panel to help it on where it's going and guide the AI that's flying the plane, but you're sort of guiding it. And then you bring it into land on what you finally want. And I think that's where we're going to go. And I would actually say that where we are right now with AI is that it hasn't reduced the workload for anyone at all. Almost what it has done is enabled us to get more done more quickly. I know that I get things done a lot quicker now, whether it's thinking of a blog post, working on a presentation, by working closely with the AI as an agent, as an idea generating tool, as something to synthesize my thoughts, to gather information and data on my behalf that might take me 5 hours, that takes me 5 minutes. I'm not doing less work. And in fact, I've had my biggest year ever this year financially. And I think it's because I'm getting more done and being able to satisfy clients' needs far more quickly and be able to do more keynotes and write more things because I've got this incredibly powerful general AI at my disposal. But everyone I
An
speak to within
accelerator.
an accelerator, and everyone I speak to within the informational realm, whether they're tradies or people working in commercial roles or entrepreneurs, they all just say that they're all getting more done. No one's doing less work, I don't think. And productivity's been the big missing link that we haven't had. I think this is it. And even if the AI can do everything for us, I don't think we'll want it to. We actually want to make decisions. We want to have the final call. That's why you have board meetings and someone comes in and the big cheese makes the decision. People don't want to outsource their agency. In fact, the entire capitalist premise and money itself is about increasing agency to make independent decisions on your behalf. That's the thing that we want, right?
Yeah, but what
So,
we want isn't necessarily what the same thing as what our bosses want or our shareholders want. You know, if I still think we're going to see low level jobs go, and I've already like, I wonder
and
about
we
the
will
impact.
see them go, but not more than we have. Like, it's going to be the same pattern that I don't think it's going to like be this massive overnight deluge. Oh, AGI's arrived. That's it. Agentic art can start, finish, envisage the project, guess what the project is before you even start it, and it's already done it. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
I wonder what the impact is on like gig economy jobs. I 2 years ago I had somebody who was editing my shows for me. I had somebody who was transcribing my shows for me. Now I do both of those things myself with AI tools.
Hmm. But
Editing
they're
a show,
singular. They're
used to take
almost
it.
those singular things. And this is the point that I think a lot of those pieces of the puzzle, you have this guy does the edit, this guy does the transcribe. Well, now you've got AI can do those bits. And it is incumbent upon those people who have singular jobs without a wide scope. Like we need to be as horizontal as possible in what we do so that we have all of the pieces of the puzzle so that we don't get replaced. The more singular your role, the greater risk that you're at. Like translators, the classic one. Oh, like it must be a tough time to be a translator right now.
Hmm. Well, I do think the big question is, when are we going to have AIs that are reliable and can be trusted to 3 nines, 4 nines, 5 nines? Never going to be 100%, but trusted enough, or have AIs working to check each other's work in a system where you can give it initially a relatively low level job and be confident that it will deliver a, an output that it's at human quality level or better.
Yeah, I think we will have that, and maybe we do have that now, but we're the pilots flying the plane, right? And we're telling it needs to go off and do this. We're managing agents in the same way that we manage employees, or we're managing AIs doing processes that we would have done ourselves or low-level employees would have done. Some of those low-level employees get replaced in the same way that mailroom people, it's a terrible example from 1989, they get replaced now that we move to email. And so low level functional roles get replaced, but I don't think complex roles that have a multitude of inputs, outputs, and stakeholders and micro projects get replaced. Only people who are tiny, thin projecteers get replaced.
But if you replace all of the low level people, what's the job of the person who's currently managing all of the low level people? Like corporations
Okay,
are
so the job of the person who,
hierarchies, right?
yeah, they are. The, the job of the person who is managing low level people is someone who manages a bunch of AIs and agents, and actually becomes a really important role because those agents are delivering work that then goes up the hierarchy, and you become an orchestrator of the tasks that AI bots and agents do on our behalf. In the
So you're
same way that
no
you become the
you're no longer
you,
managing humans, you're managing
yeah, no, you're
AIs.
managing bots. Yeah, that's right. But I do think that some of that hierarchy will remain because people like to be in charge of people. And I still believe that 90% of jobs are bullshit jobs that no one really needs anyway. All those Amazon jobs, those 30,000 Amazon jobs, they're all just like, oh, what are you on? Billy Blogs, podcast, promotional operator, strategic, special projects guy on 400 grand a year and whatever. And bye-bye, thanks for coming. Like that's what happened. For sure. Like they're real bullshit jobs. And the great reminder is what happened during COVID. We found out the jobs we really needed during COVID, didn't we? Well, we need the person who can clean the streets and the medical people and the food. And we've really found out what we really needed. And all of the bullshit jobs, those 30,000 Amazon, that was everyone working from home and doing nothing and getting
Um,
paid more, which is
and,
insane, but that's the world.
and we increased the salaries of those people
Of course
doing
we
the
did.
really
Why wouldn't
important
we? Why
jobs
wouldn't we?
100 times because we realized how important they are.
So if I can propose a question to you, Cameron, and I
Mm.
am writing a post on this right now about ownership. So let's imagine that you get a robot, and this robot can do everything that you can do and can do your job on your behalf. Let's say the robot could be an AI or it could be a humanoid Cameron that looks and acts like Cam with the short grey hair that he got at the age of 23. But this robot isn't a 23-year-old. It's a new robot. It's just arrived. And it can do all the things that you can do on your behalf, or the things that you don't want to do, like super efficient. If you could get that robot and it could do all of your tasks, or even if you're an employee, and let's imagine you have this weird sense of autonomy where you can deploy whatever resources you want in your job. You get to make that choice. You could bring in a bot to do things for you. A little bit like how you go on the internet and find things to do your job. If you could own that bot, of course, you would say yes to it every day because you could be more efficient, get more done, maybe free up your time, do other things, maybe not work as much, right? If you could get that bot. The problem isn't the robot or the AI. The problem is who owns it, right? It becomes an ownership issue. If the company deploys the robot and owns the robot, it gets rid of you. But if you own the robot and deploy the robot, that's a totally different set of circumstances. I know it's a weird kind of antithetical example, and that's not how commerce works, because the boss and the management and the owners of capital get to decide where resources get deployed. But if you owned those, then you'd have to say the AI and robotics revolution isn't bad. It's a question of who owns it, who deploys it, and where do the benefits get distributed. See, now I'm sounding like a communist. Now you've finally got me. I've had 3 months of thinking without Cameron, and I've come back a communist.
Well, for a start, I wouldn't want to replace myself with a robot because I like what I do. I don't want to
That's
outsource
the
what I
point. I
do.
said
I
of the
like
bits.
what I do.
Well, no, but wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yes, you like what you do, but you were just telling me 5 minutes ago about the bots that you were deploying to do certain parts of your job. So this is the point. Some people would want to replace themselves entirely with a robot that becomes their economic engine, let's say. Instead of owning a company, maybe you own a robot that becomes your personal economic engine that goes out and
Slave.
works. And it, well,
Hmm.
wow, here we
Slavery.
go. Here we, you had to
You're
do it,
talking
didn't you?
about slavery, basically. Yeah.
Well,
Have
if you
an
know,
army of
if
slaves out there working for me.
well, Kurt Cobain sang about it. He said, "And it's okay to eat fish because they don't have any feelings." It's okay eat fish 'cause they don't have any feelings. Something in the way the robots don't think. Like that's where we are. So so I think we're going to get to a question of ownership and deployment. You can have a
Okay,
robotic economic engine doing these things
robots.
for you,
Robots is
and
the
you can do
next
the things you
section of
want
the
to do.
show, Steve. I'm trying to stick to AI, and then we'll get to
Okay.
robots in a minute. You're getting
All
ahead.
right. All right.
My question is, where we're at with AI today, is this where you thought we'd be 3 years ago? Are we further ahead, or are we not as far ahead as you thought we'd be?
We are further ahead than I thought we'd be. Way further ahead. Because humans have a terrible habit of once something arrives and they're used to it, they just have full disappointment and they just want more. We're greedy little beings. It's like, seriously, we are so much further ahead. ChatGPT, the first, what was it, 3.5 that came out and blew minds? Like, that was crazy good at everything. And then now you can have live real time conversations. It's got live web. You can create video. You can get it to write code. Like, it's incredible. I think we're further ahead. And I think maybe in the past few months, if we imagine technology doesn't move in a straight line, it moves in step changes. You have a bit of a flat moment and then a boom and then a flat moment. We had quite a few booms and then a little bit of flatness in the last few iterations were maybe a teeny bit disappointing because our expectations are so incredibly high now. I think we're way ahead.
At the end of last year, the end of our 2024 season, we predicted 2025. We both said the same thing, the year of agents, because that's what all
Yep.
of the state of the art model companies were talking about. You and I were talking the other day, and you said agents very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. So we are further ahead than I thought we'd be 3 years ago. We're not as far ahead as I thought we'd be almost 12 months ago. So we did so well in those 2 years. It was so ridiculously incredible, or 2.5 years. Even the first half of this year was pretty incredible, that my expectations was just so high. And now I'm a little bit disappointed that agents haven't arrived. But it might be in the next 6 months that moment happens where everyone goes, whoa, remember agents couldn't take off and land the plane. Now they can.
I think
So
agents have arrived,
they have
but
arrived and they're a bit disappointing.
yes, it's
They're here and
very
they're a bit
early
disappointing.
days. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're not very.
It's early days. We haven't
Yeah.
reached the jet engine phase yet. We're still smashing those propellers and the dual wing. I mean, we're not there yet.
I mean, my cursor example before is a limited example, but to me, it's mind blowing compared to where coding was with AI a year ago, where I had to tell it what I wanted, copy and paste the code, put it in an IDE, run it, copy and paste the error message, put it back, find a
Yeah.
document, share the document. Now I just give it access to my directory on my hard drive and say, go do it. If you need something, look it up. and it does, and it finds it and it fixes it. Still perfect? No. But in terms of where we were at the end of last year, mind blowing. But it's a limited example of agentic behavior from a coding perspective. By the way, there was something I would have talked to you about a couple of months ago if we'd done a show. There was a lot of criticism I was seeing online because Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, had said 6 months earlier that within 6 months, 90% of code would be written by AI. And people would say, well, that's not true. I'm still coding the old fashioned way at blah, 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 blah.
Love.
My argument is, but there's 200 million people writing code now that weren't writing code 6 months ago.
So it is. It's maybe even more than 90%. You're right. It definitely is. And I was just, looking at the idea of it coding. One thing that it has done recently is AI can release its tentacles into the web and the market and bring things back now. So in a way, that's kind of agentic within the scope of the project that you're asking it to do, rather than here's a project, go and do it. But on the tools that it's been trained on, like coding, it does very well go out and go, oh, okay, I've gone on to Hugging Face and I've done this and I've gone to these different, and it brings back. So its tentacles are starting to reach out.
We've also seen this year the rise of text to video and text to music models, which are really accelerating very, very quickly. VO 3.5 just came out where you can do much longer videos. Sora 2 came out a few weeks ago. I still don't have access to it, even though I have an invite code from my son in LA, because you have to be in the US to be able to download it still. But the videos that are coming out are really, really super impressive. But interesting, I was in the car with Fox the other day and he said, you know what? I'm sick of Sora videos. He goes, everywhere I look, it's Sora video, Sora video, Sora video. And he said, I'm actually quite concerned about the future where I'm not going to be able to tell what's real and what's not real anymore. And he said, if I had a time machine, he asked me, he said, if you had a time machine, would you go into the future or would you go into the past? And I said, well, hold on, can I get back after I do it? He goes, yeah. And I go, my answer is usually the past. And when people say, where would you go? I say, I'd go back 30 years ago to talk to my dad and my grandparents when they were still alive again, because there are so many things that I wish I could tell them about and talk to them about that I didn't have the opportunity, or, they didn't get to meet any of my children, and, they didn't get to meet my wife and all that kind of stuff. But I'd show them my abs and say, look at me, I'm 55 and, I'm do Kung Fu.
Have you got abs though? Don't just wait a minute. Stop. Pause, everyone. Holy mackerel. Riley's in good shape. And now the podcast is X-rated all of a sudden.
Dude, I have this incredible Kung Fu body now because of ChatGPT.
If you say so yourself. I mean,
well,
it's
compared
incredible
to where I was a couple of years ago. Yeah, I'm saying incredible subjectively, not objectively,
yes.
Subjectively.
Wow. Yeah.
But he was saying, and I said, well, but then I'd also go into the future and see what stocks are successful, and then I'd come back and invest in them.
Almanac style.
But he said, yeah. But he said, I'd go back into the past because I want to know what life was like before everything was AI and, computerized. What life was like before iPads and iPhones and the internet and AI.
A sense of freedom and fluidity to it, didn't it? It really did have a different sensibility, and every era has upsides and downsides, right?
My point is, I keep wondering how his generation is going to respond to this world of AI content and the dead internet theory and all that kind of stuff. I kind of assume they will just flow into it, not question it, not think about it, and it'll just be, well, this is what we've always known. But the fact that he's 11 and is going, you know what, I don't like this. This is really kind of depressing and scary. I don't know if that's reflected across his generation at all yet, but it was kind of surprising to me that that was his current point of view.
He's a very wise young fellow. How old's Fox now?
He's 11 and a half.
11. Yeah, so
Mm.
got smart parents. I'm not surprised. Couple of things. The first thing is, if he wonders what life's like pre-internet, you can actually still do that in the real world. It's not that it's not possible, it's just that we don't. So you can go somewhere without a smartphone and only read a newspaper and maybe just watch the TV channels that are on the TV and be in nature and be at the beach and not have your phone. And all of that is still possible. We choose not to, right? So that's an interesting just side note, is that anyone who wishes for the past can reinvent it by changing places and being
Log
deliberate
off.
about what, yeah,
Mm.
and what things you bring with you, right?
Mm.
But I want to pick up on the VEO and the video to text, which is another amazing thing with AI. So yeah, again, if the listeners haven't got it yet, we are so far ahead of where I thought we'd be 3 years ago, incredibly so, and that's another great example. But one of the terms that you introduced me to way back in the early Twitter days, probably 20 years ago when we first met, was the splinternet. And I feel like the splinternet is making a comeback, because what we have now is a couple of apps which are AI only apps. The Sora app and the Meta app are both AI only apps. And in June of this year, and I'm not talking about malicious bots, the amount of content on the internet crossed over to be a majority of AI. It's now 50, it was 51% in, I think it was August. There was a lot of articles that came out where the internet officially crossed over to be more non-human than human. And I think we might see apps which are human only. And a couple of people have proposed it. What is the new social network? How do you prove that you typed it with your finger in that moment and the photo has to be live, or it has to be only human? And there's technological ways you can do it. It creates boundaries and barriers to entry, and that's okay, because that's what it would be for. You would log in and go, well, this is a human with a human opinion. There are no bots on here. You can only be a verified human in some capacity, because we've already got the AI versions of those now. And to be quite honest, after 5 minutes, they're pretty damn boring. I've uploaded a heap of photos into the Meta app and created videos. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's a little bit like, I get the joke,
Yeah.
because there's something wonderful about dogs hang out with dogs, birds hang out with birds, fish hang out with fish, and humans hang out with humans. And so
Fox was
now we've got this other species, the AI species, and we've talked about spawning another species, but we
mm.
want to hang with humans.
Fox was talking about Nightmare Before Christmas at bedtime last night, and he was like, "We're never going to see that again. Like handcrafted animation or stop motion animation." He said there'll be stuff that'll look like it's handcrafted stop motion animation, but
Mm.
but it won't be. And I said, well, maybe people will go back to doing that because they want human generated content. He goes, but how will you know? And I said, well, there'll be behind the scenes stuff of the animators making it. And he go, yeah, but how do you know that's not AI generated?
Good call.
And I'm
How
like,
do you
yeah,
know?
it will
What
be.
we've done is we've shown it behind the scenes to show how humans generate it, but we've generated it with AI to make you believe and feel, because we here at Animators Incorporated know that the feeling of the belief that it really was human when it wasn't is the feeling that you're really after.
Okay, before we run out of time, because I still want to talk about robots, next 3 years, Steve. So you've talked about we've come a long way. You're a little bit disenchanted with the lack of agentic progress this year. Based on what progress you've seen happen over the last 3 years, where do you think we will be sitting 3 years from now in the end of 2028?
End of 2028, this is my prediction. All of us will be working with a number of agents. I think they'll solve the agentic problem. I don't think agents will be just let loose and just ping you in the morning and say, hey, you know how you had a few conversations with Cameron and then Billy and Mary, and you've been thinking about doing this startup over here. Well, I've just launched it all overnight and here's what I've done. Hope you like it. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think we're still going to set the course of the AI agent, but I think it'll be able to do everything. all of us will be managing a suite of AIs or a singular AI that can do a number of projects simultaneously. A little bit like the movie Her, where she's having 11,064 conversations simultaneously. We'll be managing those. I think leading edge consumers and companies will start to have a lot of robotic humans, humanoid robots, walking around in offices, retail spaces, factories, warehouses, and homes doing work.
Let's skip ahead. Robots is the next section.
Okay.
Steve. Stick with AI, Steve.
Just straight AI? Just straight AI, you mean screen-based AI?
Yes.
Screen and verbal. Okay.
Yes.
I think all of us will be working with a suite of agents, both in corporate and private settings, that will be guiding on projects that can do all of the technical things that we can't do, whether that's video editing, writing code, managing projects, mathematics, engineering, all of those things. And I think it's going to be a real period of emancipation where your qualifications are almost irrelevant, and the only qualification you need is to have good taste, to have desires, an entrepreneurial ethic, and know what projects you want to undertake.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't expect to see a slowing down of progress. I expect to see ramping up. I think things are going to continue to build exponentially on the version that came before. I think AI is going to play a role in enhancing and developing itself to greater and greater extent. AIs coding AIs and taking the learnings and factoring them into the next iterative step forward. I do think with the text to video generation of the content, a lot of it is AI slop, as people call it, or just the same idea repeating itself. And I do, I am waiting for the first generations of truly innovative and exciting content to emerge out of those. A kind of music that we've never heard before, a kind of video content that we've never seen before, that takes all of these things and really just does something truly exciting and truly innovative and spawns a whole new area of content. I remember with podcasting when we started it 20 years ago, people were saying, well, it's just radio, and it's just radio on a portable device, right? And that was to a certain extent true. And I used to say, one day we'll figure out how to do something that's truly unique. And without blowing my own horn, I was one of the people who did that, because all of a sudden I did 100 hours about Napoleonic history. No one ever in the history of humanity had talked about Napoleon for 100 hours in a media format like that.
Well, the market couldn't tolerate it. You couldn't do it because you couldn't.
Even in cassette tape pack days in the 80s,
right?
No one did 100 cassette tapes, hour-long BASF cassette tapes on Napoleon or on Caesar or Alexander. Even hour-long, or now 2-3 hour-long podcasts are quite commonplace now.
All right.
A cramp in my leg. It's not a heart attack.
Oh, I'm so glad it's not a heart attack. Everybody relax. Karate Man, the black belt himself, has abs, but unfortunately his grey hairs and age give him terrible cramps. It's not a heart attack. Everybody relax. He will live through this. And I feel like that is karma coming back to Cameron for showing off his abs. You heard it here first on the Futuristic, where Cameron could not predict his hamstrings popping as they have. Cameron, don't edit this out. It's hilarious.
God, that hurt.
If you're not watching this on YouTube and you're listening right now, Cameron is stretching out his hamstring.
Right there. Oh, I just tucked my leg.
I seriously thought you were having a heart attack. Has anyone died? Has anyone died live on a podcast? Has
That's a good
anyone
question. I
died
don't
live
know.
on a podcast? We're going to have to ask
Christ, that
AI.
fucking hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to go have some electrolytes and magnesium.
So,
Potassium.
two things
Um,
on the podcast with Napoleon that you did that wasn't possible on the it's just radio on internet was, first of all, you found a long tail of customers without any promotional costs where they kind of found you, distributed around the world, which wasn't possible before.
yeah,
You had breadth of content, which in the physical world, whether you're burning CDs and shipping them around the cassettes, that wasn't possible either. And
yeah.
so the content, the topic, the distribution, and the audience, all of those things weren't possible. And you were a real innovator within that realm where uh, classic long tail, one size fits one. The world is weird and now we can all find each other.
So anyway, my point, just without wanting to suck my own dick, but the point was, new things do come out of these things. It
They
takes
do.
time
It
sometimes, but new
does.
things do come out of it. Worthy new things. I mean, again,
And,
says me.
and we haven't found them yet with the AI slop and the
Yeah,
text to video. I did see one small iteration that gave me a 3-minute smile, and then I got on with my life, which was Pixar animations with ironic political bents arriving on TikTok, where it
right.
would talk about the Little Mermaid and then like turn it into some political thing, and it had all of the imagery in Disney, and it was pretty smart and cool, but it wasn't a fundamental fork in the road where it's an entirely new thing.
Hmm. So there's a lot, and I think we're going to see wider deployments of AI into everyday life and business operations. More decisions, more workflows, more operations will be partially or fully AI driven, rather than just AI assisted as they are today. I do think AI agents will not just generate code or content, but will be able to execute multi-step tasks with some maybe real world effect. Bookings and purchases is kind of a little bit sort of boring for me, but real operational decisions. What I'd love to be able to do today is say to my AI, I want to create a new marketing campaign for my investing podcast in America. Can you go out, find all of the right audiences, find the people that are listening to investing podcasts that are interested in Buffett style value investing, track down their emails, their socials, what they're listening to, go and create ads for other podcasts, execute it, do the deals, negotiate the deals, execute it, just go off and do it, have it, go and deliver all of that kind of stuff. I think models are going to become more efficient. I think they're going to become cheaper to train and deploy. I think we're going to see even more stuff coming out of China. Oh, by the way, side note, but great. I don't know if I already sent you this on a text, maybe not. There's a new book I just heard about by a Chinese American China scholar called Dan Wong. It's called Breakneck, and it's talking about China and where it's going. And one of the greatest insights that explains China versus the US and the rest of the world was this. He said, China is run by engineers, America is run by
You did
lawyers.
you sent me that quote, but
I
you
sent
didn't
you
send
that
me the
quote.
book. Yeah. Which yeah,
I listened to a
that's right.
podcast interview with him. I think it was a New York Times interview, and he said I lived in China for I think it was like 2017 to 2023,
Mm.
and he said, not only are Chinese cities better than American cities, but you go out into regional China now, and the regional cities are better than big American cities. They've got better roads, better energy, better water, better Wi-Fi, better internet. Everything's better because he said, Deng Xiaoping made a conscious decision to elevate engineers into the Communist Party, into the Politburo, and that's continued. So they have an engineering first mindset. How do we build the future rather than a democracy run by lawyers that's like, well, here's what we're going to allow and here's what we're not going to allow, and you just all figure it out in the middle. They're like, here's what we've got to build. Let's go build it. And he said, and sometimes they get it wrong. They build the wrong thing or too much of something or whatever. But it's that engineering mindset, and which is why they're now doing more patents than anywhere else in the world. And he also said, competition is even more cutthroat in China than it is anywhere else because
Oh,
there's more
America's
of them.
terrible. Well, America's one of the most uncompetitive countries in the world. It
He,
really is.
he said, but if you look at it, and he's talking about what happened in the tech sector over there, he said he interviewed one company over there that started off as a Groupon clone and survived, but they said they were one of 5,000 Groupon clones operating in China at one time. But he said the thing is, because of the way it works, the people and the state get all of the benefits. The entrepreneurs themselves fight it out for scraps
Which
because
is
there's so much competition.
That's what capitalism should be. It should be that corporations fight and that there's no barriers to entry, and we can continue to have that fight so that the consumers get the best outcome. That's
Mm,
the idea of capitalism, which lurches the entire economy forward. But you don't have capitalism in America anymore. I mean, again, there's no such thing as pure capitalism, pure communism, any of that. We've
mm,
discussed that neither of those exist. But America has become far less capitalist, as has Australia in the last couple of decades, incredibly so. And I think a big part of that is because software has copyright laws baked into it, which reduces competition potential. It's one of the major issues. And then you've got the aging population in these economies as well, where to get into power, you need to protect the power structures that exist. But within China, the idea that they're doing better, part of the advantage is they don't have legacy infrastructure. When you're starting at ground zero, it's easier to design a new futuristic city than
mm,
when you've got existing roads and systems and vested interest of who owns the capital. It becomes a
mm,
far more difficult place to innovate around.
mm,
And you have protection versus creation.
mhm,
China is in creation mode and
mm.
America's in protection mode.
Yeah.
And that's a core issue. And you use the word Politburo. That's actually the core issue in America now is not technological. It's not that they don't have enough entrepreneurs or enough clever people or the wherewithal to do it. It's that we have the wrong political structure. It's the same in Australia. It's why no one can afford a house, uh, is because we're protecting existential power structures. And it's getting worse in America too, and certainly with tech and AI.
So getting my point was just going to be I expect to see more AI leading edge stuff coming out of China. More chips, more data centers, more models. I do think China's really going to become way more important 3 years from now than it is at the moment. It's already caught up in many ways to the US, but I think we're gonna continue to see rapid progress coming out of China. Let's move
And
on to
that's a good
robots,
thing.
Steve. We're
Just
an
real,
hour in. Can we
Here we
do
are.
robots?
We can. We definitely do robots real quick.
Quick.
One last thing that happened with AI was I really liked the idea when DeepSeek came out and really blew everyone away. They had an open source code base. The fact that it showed it was the first to show the thinking of the AI, the thinking process, and
Mm-hmm.
notice how quickly
Mm-hmm.
OpenAI turned around and released a model for that. I
Mm-hmm.
think China being competitive is good for Western markets because it keeps us on our toes.
And now we have lots of really state of the art models coming out of China that are, if not as good, almost as good as the state of the art models coming out of the US. So, robots in November 2022, Steve, humanoid robots were largely curiosities in a lab, high cost demos of walking or balancing or some simple manipulation, but not doing general tasks in human environments. They were wired up, tethered, usually lots of external sensors or human teleoperation. The business case was weak. And they didn't have AI, so they weren't very smart. It was all about look, it can stand up and balance or stack boxes. Robots and AI were sort of separate tracks 3 years ago.
Okay.
Today, of course, it's just robots are a delivery mechanism for AI in many ways. We see it now. It's all going to be integrated from the get go. And, one of the big news stories this week was the Neo humanoid robot going on pre sale. $20,000. You can pre order a Neo. and a very, very, well, not very impressive, a somewhat impressive launch video for it that came out this week of it going around your house doing all of your chores for you while you're out of the home. Wall Street Journal went and met with them, and behind the scenes, 99% of everything that you saw in the launch video was a human teleoperating the robot. The robot's not
With
real.
the remote
It doesn't
control.
exist.
Elon must be behind it. There's some
Yeah.
people in the humanoid robot dancing around.
It's just, yeah, horrible. But that's where we're at. They're pre-selling this thing that
Yeah.
doesn't even exist yet,
I
trying
love
to
a
get ahead
pre-sell
of the
that which
market.
doesn't exist. I love a pre-sell.
What about your robot that you ordered? Have you got it yet?
No, it arrives in December. K-bot,
Right.
which
K-bot?
is you have to code it. You can't verbally and visually train it,
Right.
which is going to be tricky. But still, I'm going to pre-order one of the Neos too. Like, why not? It's pre-order. It's like a few $100. It's definitely worth doing. I love what you just said, Cameron. Humanoid robots are a delivery mechanism for AI. That's beautiful, man. And that's exactly it. And I think this is a bigger shift than screen-based and voice-based AI. Because they're multimodal. Now that AI can talk, have visual, verbal reasoning, we can explain things, we can do demos, it becomes the let's say the embodiment moment of AI. And I think it's akin to what happened with the car. Because we had horse and carts for hundreds of years. We've had robots, not for hundreds of years, but for quite a long time. Static robots that can do tasks within factory settings. What we've done with AI, I believe, is developed the brain and the nervous system to put inside the humanoid robot to get a deployment. And we need humanoid robots because we've got a human-shaped world. And humanoid robots, for me, are a chance for grand emancipation of humanity, where we can escape the screen and the tech behemoths potentially, because a lot of the humanoid robots aren't coming from the traditional big tech, which I like and is quite exciting. And if we have open source LLMs, we can plonk that into a humanoid robot that we train with our perspective, with our ideas, a little bit like the way we train our children, and show it the tasks that matter in our work context or in our domestic context. That's the exciting part of humanoid robots. And so long as they're open source and or we can tinker with them in the same way that we can tinker with a car. We used to buy a car and you own it. You can lift up the bonnet and soup up the motor and put spoilers on it and change it the way you want. That's what we need in AI. That's the missing link, right? And I feel like humanoids is the big thing. I think the robot economy, and I wrote about that a few weeks ago. I think we're going to have this huge robot economy. The nighttime economy is 13% of GDP, and it didn't exist in Australia until 1917 because there was no electric lights. If we can deploy robots to do things on our behalf, they become a new economic engine for everyone. I'm really excited about that, but it's got to be open source where we can play with it, not where the code base and it's all controlled from afar and across the cloud and they upload and download. Potentially we could teach our robots something and then license what we taught our robots, so you can have the nicest trimmed hedges in your garden because your robot is the champion at that, or whatever it is you want to teach it. For me, this
so
is
capitalist.
the thing that I'm...
Train it and then give it away. Give the code away. Make it freely available.
Give the code
Open
away.
source the code.
Okay, great. Do that. Well, either an economic engine or let's say an abundance engine might even be a better way to frame it.
A world where your robot sees a black old helicopter and you say, "Can you fly that thing?" And it goes, "I can now." Yeah, it downloads
right.
instructions,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
But let's call
Trinity.
it emancipation, either economically or either in a fashion that it opens up abundance because things can be done for you and on your behalf and within this ecosystem that all of us collectively own and develop. Because I think that's what happened with airlines, with cars, with every technology until we put software inside it, you know?
So where we're at today with humanoid robots, I talked about where we were at 3 years ago. Where we're at today is they are available for sale. You've bought one, primitive model, but you've bought a humanoid robot. Do you think 3 years ago you would have expected that you would have bought a humanoid robot by late 2025?
No, this is a massive surprise. And even the price point, we're talking 16K, Cam, and the new Neo is 20,000.
US.
I Yeah, 20,000 US. So let's just say they're the price of a small car. I think that's a fair synopsis. And I think
And
anyone would buy a humanoid robot if it came at the cost of a small car, because I think it's going to have maybe even more utility than a car does.
mm, I don't think we will end up buying them. I think we'll end up having them on a monthly subscription. But
Boo! Hiss!
yeah,
Boo!
but
Boo!
well, not all of us are as rich as you are, Steve. I can't
I'm not
afford to
rich.
spend
I'm not rich.
$20,000 on a robot. So if I don't get it on a subscription, I'm not getting one. But anyway,
Well,
that's
if you
another
know, but if you
story.
know, wait a minute. Let's hold up there. If you would buy a car for $20,000, I do not see why you wouldn't buy a humanoid robot, which can undertake all of the domestic tasks. And let's assume it can do everything, just like an AI is a PhD in every subject. Why wouldn't you? In fact,
Because
that
you
the
don't have the
robot might
money.
be.
Because I don't have the money,
Well,
Steve.
you sell the car and get the robot. The robot will take you further, and it can even
It'll
give
pick
you
me
a
up and
piggy.
carry me to Kung
Will
Fu.
carry you to the bus stop. It will give you a
The
piggyback
rest of the
to the
family
bus
too.
stop.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I need to get. When my robot comes, I need to hop on its back and go, you think you can't afford a robot? Well, I sold my car and I've got a robot. Where am I going now? He's piggybacking me to the train stop. Bring on rail, the OG electrical
Okay,
transport
stop
system.
ranting. Where are we? So, there are humanoid robots being deployed in factories, in Amazon and places like that.
BMW has them doing certain parts of moving panels within the cars.
Yeah. Tesla are saying they're going to ship 5,000 units in 2025, but Tesla says a lot of things that they don't deliver on. Uh, I've seen forecasts that the humanoid robot market is projected to be about US $30 billion by 2035, so that's 10 years away. But where it's at today is there's a lot of improvements, like they're able to walk around without being tethered up, without teleoperation, do simple things, better balance, more robust hardware, better finger manipulation. They can pick up objects, navigate human spaces a little bit more capably, but a long way from something that's, science fiction-y robots. Still a long way from really being something that you can use to get things done in the home. Now, when I say a long way, a year, two, three,
Maybe
I don't
less,
know, but
because remember, things are non-linear. This is non-linear
it's
progression.
non-linear. That's right. And a lot of these things turned out to be really hard, like getting the dexterity of them and the balance and all that kind of stuff. Their ability to walk or move quickly, like most of them you see, they're really slow moving. It's like I've just eaten too many gummies and everything's moving in slow motion. Uh, but we've come a long way in the last 3 years, and the big thing, of course, not just the form factor improvements, but AI in the chipset, AI in the brain. That's, as you said, is the big leap forward in many ways. There's a lot of work that's being done by NVIDIA and companies like that for building virtual environments to train the robots to do something, and then they can take that code and just stick it in its head, and it already knows how to put away the dishes or cook a
Well,
dinner
you
or
get
whatever it is.
humanoid robots are going to benefit from cognitive surplus in the same way that the internet did, where we had all of this connection and the knowledge bank went up exponentially. As soon as one robot knows how to do one thing, theoretically, if we have the right model and open source nature of it, then all humanoid robots, like you say, download it and it knows how to do it. So the rapid onset of the ability of humanoid robots should be as soon as one knows how to do it, all know how to do it. And and,
Yes.
and that's where I think you get that exponential improvement on capability, so long as the balance, strength, dexterity within the finger movements happen, then everything changes. But then you get the second and third order effect where all of a sudden, and I've been espousing this for some time now, is that the advantage of low cost labor markets starts to get eroded, and manufacturing and production of many things starts to become possible again in high cost labor markets.
Yes, I see that happening too. So the question is, where do you think we'll be 3 years from now, late 2028, with robotics?
I think someone in your street will have a humanoid robot in every developed market, and it'll be a curiosity for maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years until people see the incredible utility in workplaces and or your home, and then everyone gravitates towards getting their Model T
Yeah,
really quickly after that.
I think you're right. I think 3 years from now, I'll expect to see them out and about in what businesses, factories, in
Some
small
retail
numbers.
places, yeah, you'll see them.
Yeah. Elder care facilities, maybe hotels, places like that, doing service delivery work.
Which they're in now. I was at the Gold Coast airport and they had a robot going around cleaning the floor. I've been in a hotel in Shanghai that had a robot that goes up the stairs and delivers your food. Again, it's on wheels, but it's not far of a shift to get that capability into the humanoid uh, walking element. And
Hmm.
once you see it, the fear gets removed. People see the utility, and you just have to go to it.
Well, there's my local gyoza restaurant has a robot that delivers your
Right?
food to your table from the kitchen. But yeah, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah,
I'm talking about genuine humanoid form factor robots doing
yeah,
generalized tasks. I do expect that if they're already on pre-sale in really early models, 3 years from now we should have. I still don't think they're going to be Jetsons, but I think we'll have robots that are able to do dozens of tasks around the
yeah.
house or in the business, and prices and availability won't be at a level where they can be mainstream yet, but they will start to become something you'll see out and about more often by the end of 2028.
Yeah, the really good ones, the figure bots are well over 100K. Some of the other bionic ones that come from Unitree, they're sort of anywhere between 30 and 50. So they're
Yeah.
quite expensive, but we've got to remember that the price will half and the capability will double. It's going to be production efficiency, Moore's law capability element inside that. I think this is bigger than AI on the screen.
Who's the guy who wrote about 10,000 hours?
That was Gladwell.
Gladwell. I was going to ask ChatGPT, but you answered before I could even type in the question. I just wanted to finish by talking about self-driving cars. I saw a great clip of him a couple of months ago. I don't know if I sent it to you, if you saw it.
No, you
Him
didn't.
explaining why we'll never have self-driving cars
Oh, okay.
en
What's his
masse.
view?
He said because they are designed to stop if anything gets in their way, to prevent accidents. And I've seen videos since then of people in streets in
Hacking it,
LA
yeah.
or somewhere like that, just all standing around and sitting on top of it. And it can't move, it can't go anywhere because it's not allowed to run over people. He said the reason people stay off the streets today is because if you step into a street, you're probably going to get hit by a car and killed or hit. If the roads are just full of self-driving cars, no one's going to stop for a self-driving car. They'll just walk out in the middle of it and it will just have to stop and no one will get anywhere and nothing will get done. That's
It's an
his
interesting
argument.
idea. Yeah, and it's an interesting idea,
It is, but I have my counter argument to his argument.
which is
It's just a legislative thing. All of these
yeah,
cars have
right,
cameras and you've got, facial recognition in the cameras,
right.
plus your phone is giving off a chip. If you step in front of a vehicle or interfere with a self-driving vehicle and you can't justify why you did that,
You
instant
did it on purpose. Yeah,
instant fine. It's
yeah.
a one-stop legislative. Well, that's on
Circumvention.
you. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
fucking
no,
you're
good call.
fucking with society. Immediate $500 fine, right?
Yeah, and also the fact that Waymo is operating incredibly well in every market it's been in.
Well, that's because if there's if 1% of the cars on the street are self-driving autonomous
Sure.
vehicles, people aren't going to just go and fuck with the traffic, generally speaking. If 95% of them are self-driving vehicles, people might just go, oh, it's going to stop for me. I can just, cross the street whenever I want. But we already have pedestrian crossings. We already have light systems that say when you
As
can and
people
when you
use it,
can't cross
and
the street. Yeah.
you would hope that self-preservation and not just taking the piss or putting adverse,
But
too much trust
but
in
my
the road.
point was,
Yeah, yeah.
Gladwell was on stage going, and this is why we'll never have it. And within 10 seconds, I was like, no, fuck you, you idiot. It's like, it's one piece of legislation that
Yes.
just kills that dead in its tracks. So,
Yeah, true.
yeah.
True
So
that.
much for Gladwell as a sociologist or whatever he markets
Well, he just
himself
steals
as.
other people's work anyway, he never had an original
Oh,
idea.
allegedly. I don't want to get
Right.
sued for defamation on this podcast, Steve. Allegedly.
He does. So read any of his books. He has one
Allegedly.
idea and he just takes everyone else's research and just
Well,
shares
that's
it with
what
the public.
all writers do. That's what I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just said, according to Steve Sammartino, wrote a whole book about it. Psychopath epidemic. Look it up.
That's right. I
Uh,
have. I've
uh
read it.
no, I'm saying I stole the idea from you. I didn't,
Uh,
but yeah,
you didn't. You
probably
didn't.
stole it from someone. All right, Steve, we should go. That
It's
was
been
great
great.
fun.
It was so good. Let's
Let's
do it
not leave it
again.
3 months. Yeah, let's do it again in 3 months.
Let's do it in a week.
3 years. We could do it in three
Yeah.
years and see how we went.
We might not be here.
All right.